I'm really excited to share this document with you from the collection of the Museum of the American Revolution. It was written in January of 1777 from a town called Easton, which is about 60 miles north of Philadelphia. In the period, you would either ride a horse for several days or you would pole or row your way up the Delaware River. So it's north of where I'm sitting in Philadelphia. In the time of the Revolutionary War, Easton was a kind of boundary between the areas of New Jersey and Pennsylvania that were heavily settled by colonists and the lands that were in the possession of the indigenous people, the Native American nations, the Mohawk, the Cayugas, the Senecas, and also Munsee, Conoy, and Nanticoke people who lived in what's now north-central Pennsylvania in the upper reaches of the Susquehanna River Valley. And they had for centuries had lands taken away from them by colonists. And now in the midst of the Revolutionary War, they are trying to preserve their independence against the British and the revolutionary governments. At this point in 1776 and 1777, after the Declaration of Independence, the British and the American revolutionaries were calling on Native people to fight on one side or another. And so many Native communities had to decide, how do we preserve our independence? Do we side with the British? Do we side with the revolutionaries? Or do we try to remain neutral in the middle? And each nation, each community had to struggle and ask themselves, how do they try to protect their families, their communities, and their lands? And so this document relates to a treaty council that took place. So about 200 Native people, men and women and children, gathered at Easton with representatives of the Continental Congress and Pennsylvania's revolutionary government. And for a couple of weeks, they stayed together and they talked and they discussed and they thought they had come to some sort of agreement where these Native people would remain neutral. They would not get involved in the fighting between the British and the revolutionary governments. But ultimately, the British put a lot of pressure on them, and some of their fellow Native nations had decided that they were going to side with the British. Others decided that they would try to remain neutral, and a few, like the Oneida Indian Nation, decided to support the Continental Congress. And so the tragedy of this treaty at Easton in 1777 is that it did not create a lasting peace between the Native people and the Continental Congress. And so the story would be sad as you moved forward. You had invasions of Indian territory ordered by General Washington and fighting all along the border between colonial and Native settlements to the very last days of the Revolutionary War.